and welcome to Opening Arguments. Oh, so happy to be here. I'm Thomas Smith. That over there is real-life attorney Matt Cameron. How you doing, Matt?
Hey, guys. I'm brought to you today by MailChimp, of course. Does that still exist?
Oh, my God. I forgot about that.
Wow.
I forget if it was SNL or whatever, but when they're like, that's right, I did it for the sweet, sweet MailChimp money. That was such a good one. Wow, that is a, what was that, 2014, I think?
Yeah.
Was Serial originally?
So crazy.
Wow. And of course, producer Lydia Smith. How you doing, Lydia?
I am doing pretty well. This is the first time I get to talk to you guys about this case.
Wait, is that true? Well,
yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it a lot.
Yeah. That comes with the territory. But
Lydia and I do talk. Not on the show.
Not on camera?
Yeah.
Not on audio?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, we've gotten to the
It's
point
only
where we're
for the
so busy,
content.
we only have conversations during podcasts.
Yeah.
That's the only time we can talk. That actually became true at a certain point of certain things. Where it'd be like, oh, I'll just tell you on the show.
Yep.
Gotta say
That explains the SEIO where you're just going through your dishes.
Yeah.
And kitchen
We don't
repairs.
have milk. Can you go get milk? Yeah. So yeah, we're going to be talking about, it's a little different. I think this is a perfect opportunity in the wake of a pretty terrible couple of weeks here, which is always true. So this is timeless. Whenever you're watching that was probably also true. People of the future, whenever you're watching this, we're going to talk about Adnan Syed and the new episode, new in quotes, I guess, of the HBO kind of mini series they did called The Case Against Adnan, which is kind of weirdly named because it's everything but that. Pretty much exclusively it's the case for Adnan, but whatever. They released a new episode. We've covered this a lot originally on Serious Inquiries Only. When I was off of Opening Arguments, Matt came on, did a really excellent one, which people should check out because everything you said, every step of the way on this has been dead on, Matt. And I hope people, if you're new to us, if you're new to the show, Matt's been, as this was unfolding, the latest kind of, I don't know what you would call it, proceedings.
Legal maneuvers.
Yeah, with Adnan, Matt has really called this every step of the way on this. Back in the podcast in 1999. No, I'm just kidding, but in this this latest, whatever you legal terms for it, post conviction thing that they're doing.
No, that episode of Serious Inquiries Only, I'm still really proud of. That was my first attempt at legal punditry, and I got to tell you,
he's such a hack legal pundit, like all of them. Natural. No, it was great. It really has been dead on all the way. I hope people go back and listen because this has been a crazy making case for us in particular, because it just feels like a lot of people get a lot wrong, and it's been really nice to have the sanity here. So we're going to go over this. We're going to talk about this case. We're not going to talk about the whole, we're not going to talk about the whole case. We're going to talk about this, what's happened to Adnan, why he's out, and break down this new episode. This just came out hot off the presses as of time of recording. It's a couple days old, this HBO episode 5. They just call it like episode 5, I think, if I have that right. Special episode of the Case Against Adnan, where he kind of gets out and some of the process behind that. Really interesting stuff. I mean, as much as we've talked about this, Matt, it was interesting to see certain things that I didn't know were on video at all. But what was your just first impressions before we go to break here about this episode?
this was a disgusting, terrible piece of non-journalism.
Okay.
It's really bad. I think it's honestly the worst documentary I've ever seen.
Wow.
But other than that, I liked it. Had some moments.
It was interesting to see the characters we've talked about. I could say characters, but like, who's the prosecutor again? I'm blanking on
Marilyn Mosby.
Marilyn Mosby.
Yeah, Mosby. That was interesting to see like interviews with her at the time. You know, I didn't know they had those. That's kind of weird. You know, it seems weird to me. Okay, that's where we're coming from. We'll talk more about it after the break, but we're going to do that quick pause that we do for the podcast ad break, and we'll be right to it. During which I'm going to take a little sip of coffee. That sip of coffee is just for the viewers. No, I'll probably cut that. Matt, I thought in an effort to not relitigate the entire case, because it's really hard not to. For me, I'm not talking about you, but for me personally, whenever we start talking about it, I was thinking maybe we try a certain, like tact here. Like, I think, first off, we shouldn't hide anything. Like Matt and I both very much think Adnan did it. Matt's a defense attorney. I think it's worth emphasizing that Matt is not on the side of prosecution by default. Like, you're a very defense-oriented person. You're very defendant like oriented person usually, right, Matt? And this is not like you're not like the law and crime prosecutor guy that, so like
lock him up.
Yeah. I think it's pretty significant to say that, right? Don't you think? I mean,
it is. I mean, I do also have a functioning brain and senses, in which I receive information.
No F's to give on this one, Matt.
No,
holy shit.
Honestly,
Matt's
there are still people out there who don't think that Adnan Syed is factually guilty of this offense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that's possible, to be honest. I guess if you only watch Serial, if you only listened to Serial 10 years ago and that's your only exposure to it, then maybe. But there's a whole lot going on here. So much more.
Okay,
but we said, we don't want to really get it. We just, that's where we're coming from. And
I don't know what the balance of things is. And it's hard because the internet gives us such a skewed picture of everything. I don't know who's what. We hear from certain people. I don't know what if we were to take a poll of the average audience, but like clearly there's a market for this episode that they made for HBO. And I don't see any outrage about it. Like I don't see anybody. So I think there are a lot of people who think he's innocent. And that's where I want to say I'm coming from here. So let's go ahead, and if anyone's watching and they think Adnan's innocent, I think we can go ahead and call a truce on that for now. We believe, I'm not going to hide it, I believe he's very clearly guilty. I think it's like there's just not any other possibility that makes sense. I'm coming from just kind of a logical standpoint. Having looked at the evidence and read through a lot of the original, case material, like there's just stuff that you can only explain away by ignoring. You can only get around by ignoring, like certain parts of the evidence, just logically speaking. So we're coming from that. But let's just talk about, we're just going to kind of forget all that for now. And if you think Adnan's innocent, let's talk about how this went down and the fact that he's now out and how all this happened. And I want to say, I also think we can really like level with folks. If you think Adnan's innocent, I'm not even going to say, like, if I thought he were innocent, if I thought an innocent man were in prison, I don't even know, to be honest, if I would care, like, how we got him out. I would just want him out.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm not even going to judge people if they're like, yeah, I don't really care how this went. He's out. Like, fully, like, that's totally, like, I think a reasonable thing to think. Like, if I thought someone was innocent and in jail and then, they're like, here's the way we can get him out. It's kind of like, but, like, we got him out. Fine. Like, I'm not even going to, like, try to say, like, oh, the principles of justice dictate that I'm an innocent man. No, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I think we can all kind of come at it. For even people who think he's innocent, we can talk about what's wrong with this episode of the show and what's wrong with the proceedings, because they were bad. They were very bad. And we can talk about why they were bad in ways that I think are important. And I think we can all in all, like, kind of put aside the disagreement on his factual guilt to a certain extent, because we'll just be here all day if we don't.
And I do want to say before we dive into that, my position, even like listening to Serial and everything, and then the coverage that you guys have all done, I also believe that he did it. But I think what's incredibly important in this is how powerful documentaries can be for people who like aren't following this daily. Because I'll be honest, I mean, they present some information in this where it had me, and
Lydia can be our listener that we
I knew what they were doing to me, and it still kind of got me.
Yeah. They're very effective. Documentaries are very, people get better and better at production quality and the music and the drama, the everything to make it really effective.
Yep.
Well, and Serial itself was one of the best podcasts ever made. And, it's imperfect as a legal drama, and it's much more a true crime drama. And I think the quirkiness and the very good production and the NPR values kind of sucked people into thinking that, well, they made a show about it, there must be some question here. But to me, this is a very standard
Can I say,
murder.
I think the theme music is a huge reason.
It's
I'm
fantastic.
not even joking. I know this is me. Like, that's what I care about stupidly.
Theme music.
I actually think there's more to that than the average person might think. Like, the fact that the theme music was so perfect, and like hearing it come in at the right time of the drama of the thing. Yeah. Like, I actually think that makes a big difference in how viral it was. Yeah. But anyway, that's just an aside. It's so good. It's fantastic theme music. I've just the artistry around that podcast. Okay. So where do we want to begin in terms of that? Oh, one more thing I did want to say is I also would, one thing we've said is I would have no problem with Adnan being out of prison right now with an admission of guilt. I'm not. So like, that's another weird way the argument goes, which is like, well, he's out. It's fine. He's out. Yeah, I do agree. But I think it is really tough taking on, again, if anyone thinks he's innocent for a moment, imagine from where we're coming from, where this is a man who strangled a girl to death, a young girl, I shouldn't say man, he was a kid as well. This is a kid who strangled a young girl to death. And for him to, I very much, if he had admitted guilt, I actually am very much on the side of people can reform, especially kids, especially someone who is still underage. I have all the sympathy in the world for like, you know, making a horrible mistake. And I think society wants to lock people away forever or kill them for this kind of thing. I'm not for that. We're very not like, you know, tough on crime people. But it's the part where he's getting a position at a college and he's teaching as though he's like this great innocent person. And that's hard to take. So I think it's important to recognize that there's a big difference between, oh, you just want him in prison forever. No, not really. I would want him out with an admission of guilt, with a fully, like actually admitting what he did. I'd be fully comfortable with him having been out like 10 years ago or for some, I don't know how long
maybe
the appropriate sentence is, but like that's, I just want to make that clear because it's not about wanting him to be in jail. I would fully okay with him being out if he had admitted it, but seeing him just being like, honestly, worshipped in a little bit, then a little, you know, just set up as this hero who was wrongly accused when in reality, I'm very, very like high confidence certain that he strangled a girl to death. It's just, it's tough to take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It made it so hard to watch, especially the end of this, which again, I'm very happy for his family. I'm happy. And I would like to see him out as well because I don't believe in juvenile life sentences without possibility of parole. I just don't. The judge had the same, we'll talk about this, had the same kind of reservation you did about, and in the end, in actually reducing the sentence. But important to remember before we get started, he has not been exonerated. He does not stand exonerated. He stands convicted. And he just had a sentence reduction. So we'll talk about how that got there. But I think we want to talk a little bit first about this production because, as you said, it's HBO. The production values are very good. It's very well made. I just think it's absolute garbage. I think it's put together, like if you actually look at what they're doing with this, because I should say to people up front, I am very familiar with the post-conviction process in this case. I do post-conviction work myself. I do a lot of criminal appeals and motions, including motions to vacate. So I am not in Maryland, but I am very familiar with how this is supposed to work. And none of this worked the way it was supposed to work, which we'll get into. But I do think that there are so many different stories this episode could have told. Many of them more interesting, all of them more factual and honest than the story they presented. So Lydia, you did a little background on this show, right?
Yeah. So initially, what I was looking into was Amy Berg, who is the director, and her production company oversaw essentially this entire series, the Case Against Adnan. Her production company is called Disarming Films. But while I was looking into this, I think there's actually something even more interesting that I want to talk about. But before we dive into that little piece of it, why don't you pull up the video I sent you? This is from Rabia Chowdhury's accounting of how this entire series came to be. And
for those who don't know, we should say Rabia Chowdhury is a friend of the family who was very instrumental in pushing this towards Serial and keeping it in the spotlight. Yes. And I have to say I do admire her dedication and persistence. I will say that much.
Yeah, let's switch on over to that.
Well, there's a lot of people, I think, in the room because the documentary, I think, really impressed a lot of people who had followed from Serial to Undisclosed and people who are new to the story. So how did initially the idea come together to make a documentary about Adnan's story?
So, you know, I want to say that, you know, nothing's a coincidence and it's this weird divine providence how this all happened, but I don't know if some of you know how Serial came together, and what happened with Serial was that one night I was watching the West of Memphis documentary on Netflix, 2013, I think. And when I got done watching it, I noted that there's this incredible director named Amy Berg who made this documentary. And it wasn't just a documentary, it was an investigative journey. She really tried to figure out what happened to those 3 little boys in that terrible case. And I turned off Netflix when I was done, and I was just devastated, but I said, I really need to find a good journalist, an investigative journalist. I was like, let me see if there's somebody in the area. And that night is the night I just popped open my laptop and I found Sarah Koenig. That, obviously, search led to Serial. Serial led to Undisclosed. It also led to a book that I wrote and Adnan contributed to, thank you for that one person. And when it was announced that the book was going to be published, a number of people wanted to option the book. And this one production company that I have a lot of respect for, based out of the UK, were interested. And I said I would be comfortable going with them. And then 2 months later, they called me and said, we just want you to know Amy Berg's going to direct this. And so it was like this big full circle. Like 4 or 5 years later, I'm like, this is not a coincidence.
Did you even think that she might be attracted to this project?
I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't believe, because of all the people. And I remember saying to Adnan, we couldn't have asked for these ducks to be lined up in a better, like it was just every single kind of piece we wanted, because you never know when you're turning over the story to filmmakers, to anybody, like what that could look like. But I knew with Amy, for her, it wasn't just about kind of making a sensational piece or just kind of documenting what had happened, but she'd been 3 years trying to figure out what really happened on January 13th, 1989.
And I'm really glad that the show was not like a hour long.
So Amy Berg directed this, and Rabia mentions West of Memphis. That's one of the documentaries she did. A lot of other documentaries, Deliver Us from Evil, which actually was nominated for an Academy Award. Yeah, she is behind Phoenix Rising, which is the Evan Rachel Wood documentary, documenting Evan Rachel Wood's fight for legislation change.
If you ever want to just absolutely fucking hate what is it?
Marilyn Manson.
Just just watch that, and then if anyone sees him, no, I shouldn't advocate for that. It is unbelievable that guy just walks free.
Disgusting.
Yeah. But when I was looking into this, the way that Rabia characterizes it is that, she was working with a production company that she has a lot of respect for out of the UK. And then, when you look at films and documentaries and things like that, there's often more than one production company. So Disarming Films is Amy Berg's production company, which their Instagram tagline is creating social justice through film. She founded it in California in 2006. And she's the only person who owns that company. Odd situation, just as an aside for folks. When I was looking at their website, for some reason, their About Us section is password protected now. It didn't used to be. Like on Wayback and stuff, I can click into it every single time it's ever been archived.
That's just bad website
some kind of mistake.
Very strange, yeah. And so I was in the code. I was trying to figure out what the password might be.
You don't need to do that. This is not
I
that
know.
important.
I know. Well, I needed to know.
Yeah.
That's who I am. But within what I could find in the Wayback, she lists, a number of actors, production companies, platforms that they've worked with in the past on different projects, and Johnny Depp is one of those people that has stayed on that list the entire time, which I was like, oh, cool. Johnny Depp, great. But some of the other production companies that are involved here are one called Instinct Productions, which is an independent and small UK production company led by Jemima Khan. And this is what really piqued my interest here. She is... From an interview that Jemima Khan did, she reached out to Rabia on Twitter. And she said, quote, "It was definitely tricky knowing how to do it differently from Serial. Tricky to get it at all, actually. We were this tiny production company. We hadn't even incorporated ourselves at that point. Every single giant production company had gone after the rights and had been rebuffed by This American Life, who were quite clear that they wanted to keep it as a podcast. Our slightly circuitous way was for me to connect with Rabia Chaudhry on Twitter. I knew that she would probably know my name because of Pakistan. Anyway, it turned out that not only were the Syed family Pakistani, they were also from the exact ethnic group as Imran's family, Pashtun. So Imran, who she's mentioning here, is her ex-husband, who was the prime minister of Pakistan.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And former professional cricket player, yeah. So then I had a question, how did this small, tiny company then partner with Amy Berg? How did this happen? And it was through a huge, major UK production company called Working Title Films. They did Fargo, the Coen Brothers movie. They did Bridget Jones's Diary. They did so many things. I mean, it's tons and tons of stuff. One of the folks from Working Title Films came on board as a co-producer and said, quote, "When Jem said, let's do it together, I said yes, because through her relationship with Rabia Chaudhry and all the other people she accessed, she had a different take on the story." So then this company is actually the one that reached out to Amy Berg to get her on board.
Sorry, just to clarify, is this for the whole series, or this
the
isn't
whole
just for
series,
this 5th episode?
The whole entire series. And then my next question was okay, we have access to Rabia. That's part of the reason why Working Title signed on. But then also Jemima Khan's she's not a nobody. She says she's from this small independent production company doing little indie ventures and things like that. But she was good, like close friends with Princess Diana. Her mom is Lady Annabelle Goldsmith. Her dad, Sir James Goldsmith, a huge billionaire in the UK. And and it was just so interesting to me that it was like this element of like money and power, and also this Pakistan connection and cultural identity and stuff that really are behind like the push to make this happen. And so from my perspective, it's like there is only one perspective that it could have, right? When you're looking at that. And Rabia just being involved so deeply and so incredibly connected to the production companies behind this as well. So
yeah, no one should think that this is some neutral take, at all. And it isn't somebody trying to get to the bottom of it. It's somebody,
right.
It's a team trying to prove Adnan innocent, which I think is like, yeah, you could, that's fine. But like, it really isn't a documentary in the sense of like, we just wanted to investigate what's going on here. This is like, these folks had an agenda and they wanted to do it.
Yeah,
right.
They want to set the record with his version of things. And that's the struggle they have going into this last episode is how are they going to simultaneously try to convince us that there was some element of exoneration or that he deserved to be exonerated, but also tell the story of what actually happened, which has nothing to do with exoneration. So I'm going to keep revisiting this theme as we go here, but I think it was so deceptively put together that I think most viewers are going to take away from this that he was factually exonerated or that there was some reason to believe he didn't do it at the end of the day. And that's absolutely not what happened. It's not why he's free today.
Not even close.
So yeah, we should...
So what happened, Matt?
Yeah.
You want to take us through what happened?
Well, maybe it'll be easier if we kind of do it along with the chronology of the episode here.
But I guess we'll see.
But I can give you the very short summary of what happened is that the state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, was facing indictment, and she already, I think, lost her primary election, and she wants to define her legacy on her way out by kind of reopening the podcast murder, the serial murder that everybody. And I'm being a little flip here, but that is what happened. It's pretty obvious this would not have been touched if it were any other case. This is, to my estimation, and according to the prosecutor as well, I've seen his interview where he said, this is a standard ex-partner murder. Like there's nothing unusual about any of these facts or the motive or the means or opportunity. And, we've got a corroborating witness with a cell phone out the scene. So just to be clear, that's, to me, it's only because of serial that we've gotten this far. And so they take it in with an extremely unusual joint motion to vacate, where they have the state's bringing it, the defense jumps on it immediately. They file it, I believe, on the 19th. They filed on the 14th of September 2022. Defendant files a reply on the same day. They have 2 days later a lobby conference off the record with the judge, and then on Monday. So there's a Friday lobby conference. On Monday, they come in and have the hearing. And during that time, they barely provide notice to Young Lee, who is the brother of Hae Min Lee, the victim in this case. And that becomes the entire appeal, not about the merits of his case, because Marilyn Mosby is trying to dismiss it. Now, we'll talk about the basis of the motion to vacate and everything else, but I just want to talk about the procedural history to the point that it ends up in front of the Maryland highest court, Maryland appellate court, and they're litigating only the issue of whether or not Young Lee, the brother of Hae Min Lee, should have had the right to have more notice, because he shows up and gives a very hurried statement. He does the best he can under the circumstances. We talked a lot about it
like over Zoom or whatever, right? Over WebEx.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And he's taken a break from work, basically. He wasn't told anything. And just again, as somebody who does this kind of work, this is incredibly rushed. It's unbelievable. This never happens to have a motion to vacate filed in a murder trial and then heard 2 days later, 3 days later.
My experience is the courts have all the fucking time in the world.
They're
like, well, this is really, really important to you, but we can't do next week. Is 5 months from now okay?
Right.
Okay.
Right. I can imagine
that's civil stuff, but a little different.
But no, it's true. I mean, generally too, criminal courts aren't that much different.
Because they have a shitload of stuff going on all the time.
Yeah,
Your
exactly.
thing or whoever's thing is just one of many things.
Yeah, first in, first out.
Crazy rushed. And the thing that's mind blowing about this, as you're gonna unfold as the story unfolds here, is like that ended up being like kind of the undoing here. Like had they not rushed it, had they given Hae's brother adequate time, like we might be having a different conversation right now.
Oh, absolutely. Right. No doubt. I mean, this really could have worked, even though honestly, there's lots of reasons it shouldn't have. But what happened at the end of the day, though, is that this was saved by the Juvenile Restoration Act. So they let him out after this motion to vacate was granted. But they had also been looking for potential JRI relief in Maryland. And so that he ended up at the end of the day, and we'll talk about more of the details as we get through this, but being sentenced to time served, 25 years, which I think is a fair sentence, just personally as a defense-minded abolition type person.
Yeah.
But we can talk more about all that. I just want to give you the very basic backdrop of the fact that this was in no way the kind of Perry Mason, like we found the real killer, we've got DNA that exculpates him. There's nothing in this whatsoever, although you might think there would be if you'd watched this series.
It's terrible. There's nothing, like, again, setting all the previous stuff aside. Like, we're just going to not deal with that. The things they pointed to just for this is the like, aha, he needs to be out because of the following, what is it, like 3 things? Yeah. They're so bad. They're so bad. And this documentary starts out with some reenactment kind of, and mixed in with, I think, a couple of real shots, just a complete, I mean, it's like a cold open with a guy, with like a naked guy chasing after someone, like it is. And in the end, we'll talk about what that is. It has nothing the fuck to do with anything. No, and it's so weird to start your special episode with something that's just, it's just he didn't do it because look over there. But then ultimately that's not, you also have a look over there, which is like a complete opposite direction. That's a conflicting story. It's a weird thing to do in my mind.
It's libel is what it is, but we'll get there.
I wonder about that guy.
It really is.
Okay, so we'll get to it.
Let's play a little, maybe, just so people can see.
Yeah, do you want to play the
HBO production values here? Yeah, they spent some money.
Okay, let's play the beginning. I don't know if there'll be any weird title crap here. Let's see, because this intro. Let's see what. Okay, we're driving along.
They just wanted to have a dramatic opener, is what they wanted.
Why is the quality so bad? I can't fix it.
Following a mail truck into Lincoln Park, which is where the body was found.
I'm a letter carrier and was delivering to my customer 5506 Calvert in Baltimore County.
You're like, well, okay, what is this going to be? That's where I discovered.
I proceeded to Hamilton when I saw a black male wearing a black hood over his face, carrying a pink children's jacket in the woods. He was completely
iPhone,
naked.
So you know it's not from 1999.
I sped off and proceeded to 5524 Calvert.
This is the cold open of this thing.
I was at a dead end when the suspect came out of the woods and was grabbing onto the post office vehicle trying to get me out. I almost ran him over to get away. I came to 5525 Lexington Road and stopped the man who tried to help me. When I was hysterically talking to him, a black pickup truck tried to get past. I told the man that this might have been him.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about why they're doing this? Yeah, that's
it. And then it goes into just like the title sequence. Okay.
Right. So in the normal course of events and a regular movie type content, I would think, well, there we go. We're being shown this incredible new information that we're going to, and honestly, I followed this case about as closely as anybody, and I had no idea what they were doing because I didn't know anything about this particular thing.
Yeah. For me, it felt like this is really, really important. Like for me to understand everything else that's going on. Now, the picture that's shown though, is that like actually the photo that was taken?
I think it is because they show it later. We're going to flip to it. And I think this is so this is so scurrilous, this is so libelous that they're actually not only naming an alternative suspect to a girl's murder, but they're showing you his penis just in case you need to see it. I've never had anybody libeled quite that hard. It's really weird.
It is very strange.
It seems bad. I'm really curious if there's any. Well, let's talk more about once people have more of a picture of who this is or what this is. Maybe they'll understand why this seems really fucking bad.
Yeah, I mean, we can just talk about it now. I think there's no reason we can't just explain. So what they're going for here is this is Alonzo Sellers, who testified at trial because he was the person who found Hae Min Lee's body. And I don't doubt, and I don't want to add onto the libel here, but I don't doubt, based on what I've seen of this man and the descriptions and everything, he has some kind of a mental health issue, and occasionally walks around naked in the woods. He was that day going, I think he had to urinate, and he had walked off into the woods.
That was a story.
Yeah,
and it's interesting. So the podcast, this is from memory, but it was interesting because the way the podcast presented it was something like, well, this is who discovered the body, and you would think that would be interesting. And it's Mr. S. They never said his name on Serial.
Right.
His story was that he had pulled over to pee and discovered this, but it didn't quite make sense. But then my memory, and maybe you're going to tell me because I haven't refreshed on this particular thing. My memory was the podcast had a reason that the cops were like, it's not him. Like they had a pretty firm reason on that. Do you remember what that was?
He passed a polygraph, which isn't obviously everything. It's not admissible, but it's a start. And I think they investigated thoroughly everything else about this, and they determined that he was just not a suspect. But he was known to the defense, and he testified at trial because he discovered the body and he had to testify. And the documentary is trying to tie this 2020 incident in which he's walking around in the woods nude with really the sinister thing with this pink children's jacket. They're suggesting something much worse. Which again, it's pretty libelous. I don't know.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah. But they're putting him forward as a possible alternate suspect, but he was cleared a long time ago. And as we'll talk about, the state's attorney's office claimed to be doing like about a year or two investigation to find the real killer, and it went nowhere with any of this.
Yeah. You would think if there's this obvious guy who's clearly, in their minds, a child murderer who walks around with children's stuff naked, you would think there'd be an easy way to tie him to
chasing after post
There's a couple things that are important here that I think we haven't said, because we're going to talk about Brady, I'm guessing, right? I mean, you said he was known to the defense. There's going to be a few allegations here that certain things weren't turned over to the defense. And that's why I think you mentioned that. This guy was known to the defense.
Right.
And
that's right.
What I think from a non-lawyer logical point of view, what blows my mind here and what really frustrates me about this particular thing is there has to be, and it's in this episode, so it's I'm not talking about the original case. I'm trying to keep it to this episode and what it is. There is this story they have to tell about why did this happen? Because, you know, again, if you have a defendant like this who you're going to say is innocent, you've got to have a story for why. Why did they get the wrong person? And the thing they go for is anti-Muslim racism, bigotry a little bit. Like they and I'm sure that exists. It is pre 9/11, but still, like not like it didn't exist. And you can talk about that and you can talk about racism and policing, fine. But do you really mean to tell me that when police found Hae's body, there was a naked black man, or there was a black man who might have done it, who has very clearly like some issues and some stuff that we're being told by this documentary, we're being shown like in 2020, he's walking around naked with a children's jacket. So this guy clearly has some skeletons or something, or some obvious things that you would think would look guilty. And you're telling me the police like had that black man and just were like, well, not him.
In Baltimore.
Yeah, in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like, not him. We want to do, hold on, with this body, guys, I want to do a different racism than we normally do 24/7. I know he did it. He obviously did it. It's a black guy. But like, let's do a different racism. I don't know who this is, or that this girl has a boyfriend that is Muslim, but I think there could be a different racism. It just doesn't make sense. Like, if this guy was guilty, if this guy did it, they would be looking at him first and foremost, and I'm sure they did.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard to connect him. And the racism you're talking about that they ended up doing, if you think they framed the whole thing, was a lot more work than this would have been. Substantially more effort.
I'm tired of the run-of-the-mill anti-black racism. Let's do a different thing.
Let's do one for the books.
Work.
But I think this is super important that you guys are kind of teasing this apart like this, because again, is like I've been a little more removed from this case and kind of following it like in the weeds level anyway. So for me, like seeing this, it's like, okay, obviously I know they want me to think something about this. And then as it progressed, like there's little pieces here and there that continue to be like put in front of you that are starting to make me feel like, okay, actually maybe there is something there, because I'm not keeping it in my mind at all times that like, no, the defense knew about this guy. No, you know, they already investigated him and cleared him as a suspect. I'm not keeping that stuff like really salient for myself. So I appreciate this.
I want, it's good to have the like non-obsessed person view on here, because there's another thing they do here that I think is really weak. I don't know if you plan to show this, but I'm already on it, so I'm going to do it.
Sure.
But like this crap they do here.
Oh yeah.
He ultimately pled to second-degree assault, an all-suspended sentence, no time.
So this is the 2020 thing.
I was surprised that he got a suspended sentence, given his history.
What does that have to do with anything? So what's the claim being made there? This is conspiracy theory stuff has to throw spaghetti at the wall. Yeah. So now they're like, okay, I know I wasn't planning on doing that part. Sorry. But like they show that here's how we found this. I think that's what we're meant to think. Like, here's how we found this in this guy's proceedings for this second degree assault where he was naked or whatever. Someone mentioned like, oh, and this is the Adnan guy or something.
Yeah, he's the one who found Lee's
body.
body.
It is weird that I don't know who said that and why. Yeah. And then what they just said there, I don't know why he got a suspended sentence. Listen to this. What is this supposed to mean?
Odd. He ultimately pled to second degree assault, an all suspended sentence, no time. I was surprised that he got a suspended sentence given his history.
So what does that mean? That means you're trying to allude to, without making the claim, maybe like this guy, for some reason, cops and judges just fucking love him. And they weren't going to have him be convicted for the Adnan thing. There's some spooky connection here. He only got this for this unrelated 2020 thing that has nothing the fuck to do with anything. What is that?
Yeah.
It's complete conspiracism. You're just throwing stuff at the wall. Anomaly hunting. Here's a little anomaly.
There's a bit later on where
there's more. This wasn't even what I meant to do.
No. I'm glad you did this, because this is one area where I ended up debunking at the end of the episode. But a little bit later, they call out Alonzo Sellers, didn't even serve any time, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of what she indicated there. And so I looked it up, and it's assault in the second degree. The charge class for that is a misdemeanor. So I don't really know exactly how much time he would have served, but he pled guilty. Mm-hmm. And as part of that, yes, his entire possible sentence was suspended as a result. And then he was just on probation. And
how normal is that, Matt? We're not the lawyers.
Again, in Massachusetts, that's incredibly normal. And I did also check his record just while you're talking about it. He had incidents. Right. There was a streaking incident in 94 and a decent exposure incident in 96. That's his record. And then in 2020,
that's a long-ass time ago.
Nothing until 2020.
So I would fully expect a suspended sentence, if that. I mean, not even a suspended sentence necessarily. And the second degree assault, by the way, is what we saw with the postal carrier. It was because she was taking a picture of him, and he came over and kind of rattled her.
And it was probation
and not to victim blame, so you're saying that's what provoked him.
That appears to be what provoked him.
Potentially, yeah. And probation was for 5 years, so it's not like it's nothing. Like he had to do some check-ins. He was being monitored, to some degree and stuff for a decent amount of time.
Yeah. So he's like, hey, I'm just out here streaking and you're trying to take pictures. I mean, at least shows that but I actually think that's important. Like, all jokes aside, they paint a picture of this was a crazed fucking animal. That's like, honestly, this documentary, it really does paint it like this was a crazed man and he just started running after
exactly.
It's like, okay, yes, he was streaking, but if you took his picture and he's like, hey, like, at least there's like that's a like logical process happening.
Totally random.
Hey, don't take my picture while I'm out here streaking. So like,
this could end up in HBO.
Yeah, exactly. Robbie is going to show my picture to everybody.
Very, very carefully, I want to say, it doesn't excuse any like attacking or anything, but at least makes him the podcast or the documentary, I think, really wants us to think he's like some drugged out lunatic doing whatever. And it's like, well, this is slightly different than that. Probably not great, but like, it's different than that. Here's the thing I actually meant to talk about, though.
When officers went to Alonzo Sellers' house and they did a search of the house, they went into the basement and there was a sofa, and underneath it they found newspaper clippings, and the report specifically says newspaper clippings from like January 1999 until the rest of the year.
Yeah.
What's weird about that report, the police report, is that it doesn't
nothing.
say what was
Absolutely
in the clippings.
Nothing.
But this is literally
that is weird.
Okay. He was He was a witness. This man was a witness in one of the most famous trials in his area. Right.
Yeah.
So of course he kept the body of a major case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're telling me, like, it might be a little morbid, I get, but like, I don't think so. Like, in the 90s, pre like wide internet, pre like social media internet, this is a little bit of a claim to fame for somebody, or at least they're following what's happening with the body that he found.
Yeah.
If you found a body in the woods, wouldn't you be like, boy, whatever happened with that? I'm going to save some newspaper clippings. And this is what I think, in my mind, just discredits this so fundamentally. I understand Rabia wanting to say that Adnan didn't do it. I get it. But if you start turning into Alex Jones in order to do that, then you have no fucking credibility. Look, listen to what that's supposed to be. Oh, that's weird that it didn't say what.
Until the rest of the year. What's weird about that report, the police report, is that it doesn't say what was in the clippings.
Oh, is that weird, Matt? Would the police be like, sorry, what? Hold on, there's newspaper let me write down everything that's in the newspaper clippings for my report, because I'm just going to write.
Well, it said a large amount of alcohol seemed to have been consumed, and he didn't name the brands.
He didn't name the brands.
Yeah.
No, this isn't weird. This is you trying to find anomalies and trying to cast suspicion anywhere and everywhere you can. Well, this is Alex Jones shit.
And the irony, the horrible, horrible irony of the fact that Serial and this documentary were both made because they're trying to suggest that there was a racist prosecution. And so your solution to this is to blame a black guy, to frame essentially a black man, and leave viewers who maybe are just not watching that closely thinking, that's the guy. They've ignored him the whole time. Why doesn't somebody go get that guy? I mean, his name is out there now.
Like with the clippings, finding them underneath the couch, I think it would be more strange if they were like up on a wall. Yeah, exactly. Framed and stuff. And I don't know like the cleanliness of his space at that time when he's consuming a large amount of alcohol and you know, potentially going through some mental health crises. But underneath the couch, like that might have been there for, I don't know, a decade. And he just has no idea.
Even think about it anymore. Yeah. It was like, boy, that was that time I found that fucking dead body.
Yeah.
It's not strange to have news. And we don't even know that that's what it was.
Yeah.
She just says newspaper clippings from 99 to 2000 and like this proves anything.
I mean, it could even be like,
Spears. Who knows?
It could have been like his mom capturing all these things. Like,
else in the news.
That's when my son was like
or
found that body.
Does he have kids that were in something? I don't know. Like anything
Right.
else in the news could have been happening. The impeachment of Bill Clinton. It's a bunch of clippings around. It's just, but what drives me nuts is there's nothing here, and it's this thing we see all the time, which is, but if I say scary sounding words with the scary sounding music, then something's going on.
This is the danger of HBO production values, because you're taking away from this.
I expect better.
Must be a reason. I know. It looks nice. That's all I'm saying. It looks nice and it sounds nice. Yeah. But the thing is that this is nothing. And I'm so glad you pointed out this moment in particular, because this was the moment, just like you, I was like, oh, it's this kind of documentary. I mean, I already watched some of the other parts.
Yeah.
But that we're going to talk about the post-conviction proceedings this dishonestly. We're going to be starting with a complete red herring, like absolutely the reddest herring I've ever seen in a criminal case.
Is the cold open that we all associate in the crime shows, in the CSU, what am I?
CSI?
CSI, that's it.
CSU?
I was like, is there a college or something? In the LSU and in the NYU and and the NCAA shows, in the crime shows, the NYPD shows where the beginning cold open is the murderer, and then they're trying to track him down. Like it's such an association. And for them to start with this, and I swear to you that it is intentional for them to say, it's so weird that he got a suspended sentence. It's also so weird that the cops didn't write down that obviously it must have been Hae Min Lee, and he had they're trying to gesture at some police conspiracy for the dumbest, yes, the police are conspiring 20 odd years later, more than 20 years later, to keep the innocence protected of this black guy. That's just not something police are going to fucking do. It's nonsense. But they don't ever come out and say it. They just do the scary words to make you kind of subtly think it.
And according to Amy Berg, she did an interview with The Hollywood Reporter just a few days ago about this episode 5. They said, so why did you come back to the series and why now? And she said the thing that kicked this much further down the field was that Alonzo Sellers was arrested for assaulting a postal worker. So this is a driving force for episode 5.
Oh, also, it just goes against everything that the Innocence Project and defense attorneys are supposed to believe in.
Right.
That something happens 20 years later and you're like, oh, look, we were wrong about this guy. We should go and take another look. I mean, that's just not how things work. It's just not, I don't know. I understand the reasonable doubt portion and but I mean, obviously the jury couldn't have found out that in 20 years he was going to do this. I don't even know how that's
and it wouldn't,
relevant to
correct
anything.
me if I'm wrong, would this even be admissible if he were on trial for the Hae Min Lee thing?
It would be very hard to, you could try. Certainly, okay, here's the thing. He's walking around in Lincoln Park, which is where the body was found.
Oh,
so
okay,
certainly anything to do with that, you could admit. I also want to point out from the motion to vacate from page 10, I'm going to talk about the motion to vacate from time to time as we go here.
Please.
C, new information. One of the suspects, without provocation or excuse, attacked a woman in her vehicle. The defense located formally documented evidence unavailable at the time of trial because it was going to happen 20 years later. That one of the suspects had, without provocation or excuse, attacked a woman unknown to him. Well, what? That is not, you would never bring a motion for new trial based on the fact that he committed a crime 20 years later that has nothing to do.
A witness who was cleared as a suspect committed a unrelated, again, look at the details of this crime.
Grasping.
Totally unrelated to strangling a high school girl in a car, that he had no connection to. I mean, it's just crazy. So let's move on your timeline here. This is gonna be a long one, but whatever. I'm so mad.
It's worth it.
Yeah. All right. So the next, I want to talk about the joint motion. The way that they talk about this, 1438.
Sorry, a clip. Yeah, I was thinking you were going through the.
Yeah, just allows us to talk about the different sections.
Yeah, please, because I do hope you'll hit. I don't have it up. I hope you hit everything they say is evidence, right?
Yes,
or more or
we're
less.
We're going to talk first about the joint motion for DNA evidence. So this is not unusual that you have a joint motion for DNA evidence, but the way they talk about this, I think, is just really deceptive.
Okay. Well, sorry, Matt. I have to play out the rest of this, and then we'll get to your thing here because it just gets worse.
It's worth it.
Newspaper clippings from like January 1999
secreted
until the rest of the
underneath
year.
the couch.
Secreted, yeah.
What's weird about that report, the police report, is that it doesn't say. So has Alonzo Sellers been keeping clippings about the murder 20 years on? Like, what else from 1999 is he? You know what I mean? Like, what else could it be?
What?
This is broad daylight. Like, he has no. This isn't even like.
Look, Rabia, Alonzo was never looked at like he should have been. Like, this is the biggest unanswered question for me in this case. The evidence that, to me, is the holy grail of DNA in this case. The swabs that were obtained from the liquor bottle found.
So this goes straight into your thing, but I just wanted to finish that out. So she's got like, who knows what else, what he's keeping. Again, one thing of unnamed newspaper clippings under a couch in the basement. And then we go to a phone call where she's like in broad daylight. So just like talking about this later charge in 2020,
Right.
Like that has any bearing on anything. He wasn't alleged to have tried to strangle anybody. Like, hey, he wasn't, it's just poisoning the well. And I do think this Sellers guy really has a case against this documentary, but I'm not the lawyer, Matt. But this goes right into the thing you wanted to talk about, right?
I think so, yeah, about the DNA.
Okay.
So they're going to be talking about DNA testing and how this all works here. And I should note, too, this is Susan Simpson, who's one of the podcasters who works with Rabia. She does have a background as a lawyer, but she is mostly a podcaster.
Oh, really? Okay. On the Undisclosed podcast or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And some others, too.
She does seem to come across as just like a lawyer.
Found never looked at like he should have been. Like, this is the biggest unanswered question for me in this case.
Here we go.
The evidence that, to me, is the holy grail of DNA in this case. The swabs that were obtained from the liquor bottle found inches from Hae's body. To me, it's important that they had testable, obtainable human skin cells still on that bottle at the time that Hae's remains were located. But we also know that after they confirmed in the lab that they were human skin cells on the bottle, they instructed the lab not to test for DNA.
Do we know for sure that the bottle was related to the case?
Well, I mean, again, the man has a drinking problem, or had a drinking problem at the time, and he did admit that he was drinking and driving. Sellers. I want to be careful not to use his name too much, but they're trying to say.
But what even is this bottle, and how is it related to the, like, do we know it's related to the murder at all? Like, it's
in the vicinity of her body, in the woods. Mm-hmm. So a lot of bottles in the woods. And he also admitted that he was drinking and driving, I think, that morning. So it wouldn't even be unexpected that he would have had a bottle with him and dropped it after finding a body in the woods. You might be a little surprised to drop a bottle. I mean, again, I don't think it proves anything if it was his bottle, to be honest.
Yeah. And that's going to be the key. Like, everything they presented, it's really bad. We went through it at the time in terms of, this new evidence that they're trying to do. But you have to look at, like, if we're talking about exonerating evidence, are you really telling me that if they had matched DNA of a bottle at the scene that is not in any way proven to be tied to the murder in any way, that exonerates Adnan? I mean,
we know he was there. He found the body. So move on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, we already know. Yeah, that it would be expected. I mean, like, almost expected that it could have his DNA on it. It certainly wouldn't prove that he did anything. No. When we talk about, and maybe we should talk about the standards for, exonerating evidence. I'm not saying you would convict Adnan on the absence of any, like this bottle doesn't do anything either way is my point. Like, it doesn't, it's
right.
Like, it's not enough to overturn something that was a conviction.
And I got to add, when she says that they were instructed not to test it, that's because DNA testing was extremely new at the time. It was very expensive and it required a lot of resources. And Baltimore still, I think, is pretty backed up from what I've read. I mean, that was a big major point of the Wire. It was such a big deal that they couldn't get DNA testing done.
Like, remember, we're talking about 1999 when this happened, and then, into 2000 and stuff for the trial. Like, I'm not that surprised that there's not scores of DNA evidence that they were able to use for this trial.
But
like that
instructed
that makes sense
not
to,
like that just sounds so,
nefarious.
So tomorrow, the state and I will be filing a joint motion for DNA testing. will carry it to the courthouse.
Oh my Lord. I didn't expect that.
The state believes there's enough there to warrant taking another look at this.
So the plan is just to quietly file it and see if anybody notices in the media? Is that the plan?
Well, so I've met you, Rabia.
No.
So
Yeah,
Another
exactly.
glimmer of hope for Adnan Syed, who has remained steadfast in his innocence for the killing of Hae Min Lee.
This is much more than a glimmer. This is
They're gonna
a
show the
wide open
motion of
tunnel
it.
of hope. It is more hope than we've had in the past because for the first time in the history of this case, we are not at odds with the state of Maryland.
Today, he filed a petition for DNA testing of evidence in relation to his case.
Specifically, a forensics lab will test the clothing Lee was wearing when she died. Baltimore police are ordered to send the items within 15 days to the forensics lab where it will undergo testing.
This is basically the dream of any defendant who is trying to like reopen their case by any means necessary, whether it's DNA testing or any kind of other motions, is to have the state join you. It almost never happens. It's very rare, not just in Baltimore, but anywhere.
Here it is.
I mean, they're always your opponent. They're always fighting you.
This is the most important line in this petition. If petitioner's DNA is not present on this evidence, this fact would be exculpatory and could provide a basis for a fact finder to determine the petitioner is innocent. This is kind of game-changing language based.
All right. So
All
if
right,
the petitioner's
Doug.
innocent, yeah. So this is one of my real sticking points with this is they keep using this innocence language. And in fact, Marilyn Moss people twice, we don't have to watch it, but twice in this documentary, she will say directly, the state's attorney will say that I'll be ready to certify his innocence. She keeps saying that if the DNA is excluded. And we've talked about before about why excluding DNA wouldn't necessarily be. Also, if the DNA were included, that wouldn't mean one thing or another because they had contact that day. They were in, they were in close proximity to each other.
Yeah.
But the idea that you're going to run DNA samples that are easier to run now than they were 21 years later, and that's going to completely exculpate and determine someone's actual innocence. It's not the fact finder's job to find innocence anyway. That's the way it's phrased here. It's a really weird way to put it all, but I just think they're putting a lot on this.
So as somebody who's experiencing this is not at all normal.
Yeah, I mean, just the way they're talking about it. Yeah, and it's also not that unusual for the state to join a motion for DNA testing if they think there's a good reason for it.
Right.
It happens all the time with these older cases that, they might, and maybe that's just Massachusetts. They might be much more forgiving here. It's very possible.
I don't know. I could see, like if the state is feeling like, that they have the guy, like I could see them being like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go ahead and get that DNA because from their perspective, it's just going to be another like nail in the coffin.
There have been any number of guilty people who have actually pushed very hard to get their DNA tested and it's come back as them. But I think they're just rolling the dice,
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, this whole thing is, again, they're setting this up as if the DNA is going to pay off somehow, and it's just not. As we've talked about on the show before, there's not DNA on her shoes. Like, so what? What does that mean?
That was what I remember it being is a specific pair of shoes was all they could do. Now this seems to say there's like clothes and all that, which I don't remember at the time.
But nothing comes of it. And it's just, again, there's no reason to be talking about this except to get people to take away that he was exculpated by DNA. That's what they want you to believe. And that's just not what happened.
But I guess the part I'm saying, so the part that's weird here, again, for us, tell us non-lawyers, is Mosby's, speech about how, and that part was crazy to me, where she's like, we're already going, where is that actually? Is that later or is that here? Where she's like, we're already going to say like, there's not enough here, but if the DNA is not here, we'll go ahead and declare him innocent or whatever.
That's in the conference room when she's talking to him.
That's later when she's talking to the family.
That's the second time she says it. And she just says it twice. I actually counted this documentary. And that's completely unorthodox. Like that's just not how prosecutors work or think. I appreciate the effort because she does want to get him out, but that's just not how DNA works. So there has to be some other corroborating evidence. And typically what would happen is there'd be somebody else confessed and they also found DNA, or they found completely third-party DNA that points them in a different direction where they can track somebody down and solve a cold case. But this use of it is completely, So we should talk about the motion to vacate because a lot of this documentary is filler and we don't have to go through. And again, I want to say, and on a human level, I'm very glad that Adnan Syed gets to be with his mother who's going through cancer treatments. We see a lot about the family. I'm not here to talk
I'm not mad at his family.
Oh yeah, I know his parents like are so like sweet and kind and like I loved watching them. I thought it was like a rare like glimmer in this.
Even with everything I believe here, I'm happy to see anybody get out from life without possibility of parole. I really think that's very important. Or even just a life sentence for something you did that young.
Right.
So the motion itself and the way they handle this is just, I mean, there's a lot here. There's hours and hours of podcasting we could do to explain what happened in the post-conviction proceedings. I was wondering going in how they were going to do this, because they have to try to get it across in a relatable way where you take something away from it as a non-lawyer, or maybe somebody's not that familiar with the case. But I think even with all of those problems, even the challenge they had, they really failed in portraying what actually happened in the post-conviction. So I think if we want to skip ahead here, there's a summary of the state's motion to vacate.
So the state has just filed a motion to vacate judgment, to dismiss Adnan's conviction.
A major new development in the case of Adnan Syed.
Baltimore prosecutors have filed a motion to vacate the murder conviction of Adnan Syed.
The filing says that investigative efforts are ongoing. It also says, to be clear, the state is not asserting at this time that the defendant is innocent. However, based on their recent findings, they concluded that justice requires him to be afforded a new trial.
Marilyn Mosby says she's still waiting for the rest of the DNA test results to come in.
So if that DNA comes back inconclusive, I will certify that he's innocent.
The motion filed supports a new trial for Syed based on a nearly year-long investigation.
Saying they've discovered some new evidence and new information on 2 other possible suspects.
The investigation also identified significant reliability issues regarding the most critical pieces of evidence presented at trial.
That sounds bad.
So it's a pretty comprehensive filing. She cites all kinds of evidence, some of it things we've known since Serial, some of it things we've known from investigation since then, some of it from the HBO show, such as Christy Benson.
On the 13th, that night, did you get some visitors?
So it definitely couldn't have happened on the 13th because I wouldn't have been at home at 6:30 watching Judge Judy on the 13th if I had class.
The 2 big things that stand out to me are the 2 alternative suspects.
According to the motion, a person provided information that one of the suspects had threatened to kill the victim in the presence of someone else.
That sounds
the suspect said that.
So we've talked about this already, but just for everybody's catching up, that would be something as a prosecutor that would get my attention. If I thought that maybe my fellow prosecutor had held on to that statement of somebody saying that there was a total third party not aware to the parties already of somebody who was going to kill her, you'd think you'd dedicate everything trying to find that person.
That would be a red flag.
Yeah.
So Ivan Bates, the state's attorney, the new state's attorney after Mosby, has withdrawn this motion that we're going to be talking about in its entirety. He spent 88 pages explaining to the court why he was withdrawing it. It's incredibly unusual for the next administration to withdraw a motion to vacate. Everything about this is unusual. I mean, this is a fascinating post-conviction matter. Just apart from the podcast and the facts and anything else, I'd love to talk about this more, just a post-conviction thing. But in this withdrawal of 88 pages, he talks about this, but let's hear it from Evan Bates himself, because he's going to explain how this came to be, because they make a big thing about, now again, this potentially could have been not just exonerating, it could have at least been, exculpatory. It could have been useful at trial if they'd known this. But Bates in 3 minutes, basically, we don't have to watch all of it, he demolishes this
I want to point something out even before getting to that. How would this interact with the idea of the cold open of the show, that there's just the random man that did it?
Well, he's the second one.
Would be, yes, Matt. This would be contradictory to that.
Yes.
So if you're making 2 claims that are alarming, wow, I can't believe it, we're supposed to think this naked man did it. And then you're also saying, well, also in interviews, unless we think it's the same guy, unless we're supposed to think the naked man sometime before was like, hey, I don't go here to the school, but just letting you know, I'm going to kill that Hae Min Lee. Unless we're to believe that this is somebody saying, as of what we know right now, in our presentation here, Matt, this is someone we're to believe saying, I'm going to kill that Hae Min Lee. Well, we know that one of those things has to be false, has to be not it. At least one of them. Those are contradictory. There's no way that the murderer both is this black guy who was naked and this guy who said, I'm going to kill Hae Min Lee. So we know that one of those is a bullshit. Like one of those is just a false lead. At least one. So what I'm saying
is multiverse.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is if you're presenting this information in this way, where these things that you've really used your HBO skills to make look alarming, and both of them can't be true. So one of them you know is false, just as easily, maybe they're both false.
Right.
Maybe what is happening here is HBO magic and not really, like, because one is false. They are being misleading about one of these because they can't both be the killer.
They are trying to say this is Brady evidence. So they're trying to say that these are
I get
both
that,
things.
but I'm just
I just want to explain to the audience.
Us. Yeah, sure.
No, of course.
Go ahead on the Brady.
Yeah, but just to be very clear, I mean, the reason this is being presented in this motion is because they're saying it's evidence that was withheld by the prosecution, and that if either or both of these things had come out, they could have used it at trial. But I agree, of course. There's no consistent thing here. There's no coherent statement being made.
And actually, this is something that I wasn't up to date on, Matt. So I want to get the full thing on this. It's not as though Ivan Bates came in as like, did he? And I could correct me if I'm wrong. My memory is not that he came in as a tough on crime. The liberals are going too weak on everything. Like, this is also somebody who I think wanted to take this very seriously and he didn't campaign on like Adnan is guilty, we should undo this or anything, right?
Not at all. No, he's a black Democrat in Baltimore. Yeah. Very much the same platform as I understand it. He just saw through what was going on here. So
yeah, and I appreciate
no
it.
Nonsense.
He wanted to take it seriously. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, you'll see in this video about his approach. I think it's very straightforward, and this is what prosecutors are supposed to do: just go for the truth.
And what a weird position he got put in.
Yeah,
by this absolutely shoddy work, and then he's got to go in and be like, well, we're gonna look at it, and he I think he handled this pretty well, because that's a weird position to be in. And I remember looking at this, but let's hit play on this.
We had to vacate a motion. We understand the law, so let's look at that evidence. Well, there was a note, and there was a note that's alleged to have been in the state's file that was never turned over. The first thing you do is what? You talk to the prosecutor who wrote the note. It's in the prosecutor's handwriting. However, we found out that the previous administration never talked to that prosecutor. And the note really says a couple things. Prior to the murder, Bilal Ahmed was upset with the woman who was creating so many problems for Adnan. He told her that he would make her disappear. He would kill her. So the previous administration didn't talk to that prosecutor. We did. So the word he referred to who? Adnan Syed. Didn't refer to Bilal, according to the prosecutor. But that wasn't enough. So we began to really pour through.
I don't think I know this.
I knew that.
Yeah, if we can pause for just a second, I want to tell you.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait.
I want to make it clear to everybody, I'm not just buying his version of events. I'm not just saying that, and especially because we are talking about a prosecutor who has every reason to cover his ass if it turns out that he's hiding Brady evidence, right? Because a lot of people were saying we can't trust his own interpretation of his note. But there's more here, that there's something we didn't know that's going to come out in this video.
I can't wait. I don't know this, Matt. This is news to me. I can't wait. Because already it was nonsense. Because again, the idea being that this fucking dentist or something, wasn't he this guy was just like, oh yeah, he heard that a kid had a problem with his girlfriend, and so he's like, I'll fucking kill her. It's just like, in a world in which Adnan is innocent, wouldn't that be alarming? Wouldn't Adnan be like, holy shit, what? Like,
who are you?
Okay, anyway, I'm excited for this. I don't know what this is. Here we go.
Trial transcripts, and there was one piece of document that we found. And there was a report from July 7th, 2022. So there was this one, I call her the superstar witness of the motion to vacate. And this is the individual that allegedly had the conversation with Mr. Urick that led to that note.
Urick.
So based on this must be the individual that this motion to vacate was all about. So the Syed review team spoke with this individual on July 7th, 2022.
Oh, wow.
And they took some notes. She, meaning the individual they spoke to, relayed the following. And the writer of the notes that we found in the state's attorney's files said, I tried to write the exact words, but some sentences may be summaries. One of the things that was very important they talked about is she, meaning the author of this information, did not recall any threats against Hae Min Lee. Also, they asked if she remembers anything else, please give me a call. Meaning speaking to the person who actually gave this information. And she agreed to do that. Now, to me, you have that moment in prosecution that, wow, it couldn't be any plainer. One of the notes and the last sentence written by the Syed review team in the previous administration was that, I am not currently of the impression that Bilal made any threats in front of her regarding Hae Min Lee. And that is super important, And why? Remember, the motion to vacate stated they had information about a note that wasn't turned over that named Bilal to be the suspect. We found that note. We knew that we had to do what? We had to do the right thing.
So that's big. That's the review team clearing that. And then they go back and put it into their motion to vacate. Yeah. He went to the extraordinary step of saying the motion to vacate had false statements in it. And this is one of them.
Wow.
So I want to make sure I heard that right. So he was saying not just that his team in reviewing this found it. He's saying the team at the time
were
said
aware.
we're not of the impression that Bilal made any threats against Hae Min Lee.
That's
and
right.
still filed this very misleading thing, which strongly suggests that like it wants you to jump to the conclusion that this is someone else when it's actually the fucking guy who did it, Adnan Syed.
Talking
Isn't that
about
crazy?
his own intentions. That's right.
Unbelievable. And this is I mean, this already was crazy before that last part because, like, obviously, you know, but like to have someone be exonerated in quotes with new evidence that turns out to be that fucking guy having made a threat against Hae's life.
Yeah. No, reading from the motion to withdraw the motion to vacate.
It's like if O.J. Simpson was like, oh, I'm innocent. You know, I found a note where I said I'm going to kill my ex-wife or whatever.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's honestly what we're talking about here.
It's bad
fucking
pronouns.
Crazy.
So many
and the
problems
idea that,
in the world.
like, right away, the first time I heard or just read this in 2022, oh, another suspect made threats against Hae's life. I instantly, shouldn't your alarm bells be going off of like, what? This high school girl? Like, randomly, there's going to be some other suspect that was like, you know who I fucking hate? This high school girl. Like, that's crazy already.
Daughter of immigrants.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but right away you should be like, what would that be? That seems weird. And then once you get the interpretation of Urich, who said, well, I was saying it was Adnan. And there is so much forensic fucking grammar detectives, which I get, trying to parse through what that note meant. And I get it because it's confusing, but you got to remember, this is a guy trying to handwrite notes quickly as he's taking some statements from some people. And he wrote he. So like the way the flow of the note goes, I get why you're like people would try to interpret it in a way. And I thought it had the full note. I guess it doesn't. But in the full note, I looked over it like forever because people were trying to say that it can't be Adnan.
Yeah. Whose pronoun was it?
Because they're like, okay, it's Bilal's ex-wife, I think, who was telling them this. And she said he told her that he would make her disappear. He told her. Yeah, he told her. So they were trying to figure like, who's her? So he told the ex-wife. And it's like, look, it could really easily just be what Urich, the guy who wrote the note, said, which is he's taking this down and then he sort of switches modes so that he doesn't refer to Bilal in that moment. He refers to, oh, wow, Adnan told her that he would make her disappear, that he would kill her. Like that, like when you're taking notes, loosely speaking, to yourself, that is totally plausible that would happen.
Right.
In the transcription he does where he types up his notes so you can read them because they're very hard to read handwritten, he drops a footnote in the transcription, which I really appreciate, in which he says he refers to the antecedent in the sentence, refers to Adnan Syed. Now, again, that's just his interpretation of what he believes he remembers.
Well, and that was later, right?
That was after he transcribed it, right? But
so like that was him in response to this in 2022, right? It's not like we had that at the time is all I'm saying. But he did.
Of course.
So I'm saying he made it clear, as you acknowledge, Matt, he made it clear, but he might have a motive, like if they made a mistake, like just, but like he made it clear. It's at best ambiguous, but given everything together, and now given that this prosecutor, the new prosecutor, is doing the due diligence to talk to the person again, and their own team, the team that did this report wrote, we're not of the impression that Bilal made any threat against Hae Min Lee.
Yeah.
That's just unequivocal. Like that is absolutely misconduct. Like to be putting things that are this much of a lie in order to get a guy who's guilty out of jail. I mean, it's an insult to the victim and the victim's brother at the very least. Like that, like they don't deserve that. If you want to say we got to get this man out because it's been too long, I'm all ears for that, but not like this, not in this manner.
They've invented a completely new kind of prosecutorial misconduct. It's basically, like you said, that's what it comes down to.
Really crazy.
I'm going to read very quickly from the motion to withdraw. Just to be very clear about this, this statement is based on a misinterpretation of the note, citing from the motion to vacate, and a misunderstanding of the circumstances under which it is written. This note would not have been favorable to the defense. Indeed, the state's review suggests this note further implicates Mr. Syed because it implicates Excuse me, because it alleges that Mr. Syed said that he intended to kill Ms. Lee. That's the position at this point. So that's one of the major tent poles of this motion.
Hey, you didn't hand over the confession note that I did, that I'm guilty. So I should get out of jail.
Yeah. So again, there is no big blockbuster moment. And to the extent there is this thing, and then
the other way, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The extent that's the fucking, we should do the documentary, The Case Against the People Who Wrote This fucking motion. Yeah. Like, come on.
It is. I can't stress how unusual it is, though, because the Attorney General's office got involved in this too, and they filed some pretty angry statements, which we talked about before, about how they tried to stop this from happening. It's incredibly unusual for two law enforcement agencies to be fighting it out like this, because the AG's office was doing all this on appeal at the time. So this, though, I just want to show that they're conflating, like you're saying. Obviously, you're presenting two different witnesses, and the point of this, just to show it from the defense's point of view, the point of what they're trying to do here is to say this is Brady evidence. If either or both of these things had been able to come out at trial, then the jury could have had reasonable doubt about there might have been other people with some other motive and some other reason. There is actually a motive for Bilal that's developed by the defense that is so scandalous and so libelous that I'm not going to repeat it here. But
Bilal,
again,
well, he did end up being a shit guy, right? Didn't he like molest people or something? He did something bad.
Put people under anesthesia and sexually assaulted them.
Very bad.
Very bad. Yeah. In stereo. And he's doing 16 years for that, rightfully. So, but that has nothing to do with any of this at all.
I mean, it puts us in a weird rhetorical position, but like, that's not murdering a high school girl. You know, it's like a different kind of crime. Like, he did that to his patients.
Man, there's part of me that's like, he only got 16 years. Like, whereas like Adnan got 25, I guess, time served, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, Adnan would have been in jail for like ever, right? Or what would it have been if not for this, Matt? I don't remember. You said,
I believe it's a life sentence.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's not right. I don't agree with that. Yeah. But to your point, huh? Like, he's gonna do almost as much time as Adnan for murder for that. Anyway, and I want to make it clear. I understand that legally, when you're trying to argue for this stuff, you're pointing at anything you can. Totally understand that. You're going to say, hey, they didn't send us this, they didn't send us that. I get it. I'm making the point earlier that rhetorically in the documentary, when they're shooting the cold open of the fucking NYPD blue guy who did it, that is completely contradictory to this theory of the case, and they can't both be true. So it's just as easily that none are true. You know, one is false, is all I'm saying.
No, for sure.
That wasn't a legal point I was making is all.
Sure. No.
Legally, it falls apart for way easier reasons than that, which is that it's not exculpatory. Right. It's inculpatory, as you say.
And, you know, as you said, on its face, when you hear that statement, if you believe, let's just take the world where you believe that he's actually saying that I have a reason that I might want to kill this high school girl, that should be several episodes of this documentary, right? There should be like chasing down the guy who said that and like trying to figure out what that's about.
And is that guy Muslim?
Yes.
Okay, so now our bigotry is we're bigots, but only against younger Muslims.
Yeah.
You know, like,
right.
Okay, if in the world, again, police, I'm not a fan of the police, but like the way they do things, at least they're trying, there's racism involved in policing, obviously. There's also often like they're going to go to the easiest thing. That's the main thing for me. They're going to go to the easiest fucking thing. For the most part, the police.
And hope it's right.
Like, and that's why I don't believe that the guy who found the body, who couldn't be more guilty seeming and couldn't be easier to frame if you wanted to, if you're saying the police frame people, they're just going to pass that guy up.
Who had a record at that time,
What a record, yeah. And then there's apparently some molester dentist they don't know about at the time, I guess, has that record. I don't think he was busted later, right? But there's this guy, and now, again, in the worldview, in the theory of this documentary, now the police find that, and this is not a secret note from the police. The allegation is that the prosecution had this information and didn't turn it over. So that would mean, in that worldview, that the police knew about this guy who said, fucking, I'm going to kill this high school student, and who's also a Muslim, but they're like, nah, we want to be bigoted against this other Muslim though, who didn't do it. It just doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't.
No, none of it does. And
stupid.
I've never understood.
Nuts. It's so frustrating.
like we've had this conversation 4 or 5 times now, I think.
And I'm equally mad, if not more mad each time, Matt.
Well, this is our last chance. So
yeah,
I think.
We'll
I mean, it does seem to be over.
I don't know. Okay, where do we go next on this?
We can watch a little bit more of this because it is really kind of a crux of what they think they're saying.
Of the back to the documentary now?
Yeah, just for a sec.
From where we were?
Where you were, yeah.
According to the motion, a person provided information that one of the suspects had threatened to kill the victim in the presence of someone else.
It was Adnan.
The suspect said that, quote, he would make her disappear. He would kill her.
Are you suggesting that the prosecutors hid evidence from the defense?
I can't go as far as to say that they intentionally hid the evidence. I can say that the information was not revealed and was not disclosed to the defendant.
A practice known as a Brady violation.
It is perfectly clear it is Brady material. It is due process violation to not turn this over. But I am more interested in the second suspect in the filing. Now, there are no names in this filing. They just refer to like the first alternate suspect and the second.
So let's dox the fuck out of him.
Who it's referring to. One of the suspects
and what
was
his address
improperly
is?
Cleared as a suspect. In his first polygraph, this suspect was found to be lying. And he took a second polygraph that was not the one that should have been used. Obviously, this suspect is Alonzo Sellers, Mr. S. No one else took a polygraph.
Sorry, I don't know anything about this, but right away, what I would suspect, Matt, you can tell me if I'm wrong. If he took an initial one and was found to be lying, maybe like, hey, buddy, what's going on? And then in the second one, he's like, all right, I was drinking a little bit. I didn't.
Or he's anxious.
I didn't.
Like,
well,
all that stuff's
no, I'll believe that he was lying. It sounds like he might have been drunk driving, right? Or something. Like maybe he tried to hide that he was doing that. And then in the second one, maybe, I'm just speculating again, because if they're presenting us like this is a knockdown case, I'm just saying, well, logically speaking, it's not, because here's an easy possibility. You know what I mean? And so you would need to prove it out. Maybe the second one was, all right, I had something to drink, but I didn't want to, obviously tell you that. And then she's saying, well, they should have used the first one, or whatever, like that, right? I mean,
lying. And he took a second polygraph that was not the one that should have been used.
Not the one that
obviously
should have been
the
used?
suspect is Alonzo.
Oh, is it the technique? Is that what I want to make sure I have it right.
Yeah, so the thing he was distracted and that there was some kind of problem with the first one.
No schools in the U.S. Oops, sorry, I bumped my mic.
This is an expert witness
report.
report.
Teach the. Oh, okay.
Peak of tension is what that's.
Oh, okay. So their theory. Okay, I might stand a little corrected here. Their theory is that the second one is that they did a different method, or did they both do that method? I don't know if we know that.
I mean, honestly,
anyway.
It's such a technical point about a polygraph test that wouldn't be admissible in court anyway. There are other reasons they cleared him. It wasn't just the polygraph.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because if you are the police and you're looking for the guy who did it and you have a black man and you're racist and he failed a polygraph, why are you not just pinning it on that guy? Or not pinning on him if he did it. Right. Like, how is this not easily done? Like, how are they not just looking at this guy? There's a reason. And I suspect the reason is going to be that he had a rock solid alibi or just no fucking connection at all to any of this. And if you look at the facts of when the murder had to happen and how and why, trying to place this random ass dude there probably didn't make any fucking sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to continue. There's a line she's going to use in a minute that is, I have a serious problem.
God, yeah, I'll keep going. I'll do this all day.
Second polygraph that was not the one that should have been used.
Sorry, I just had to seize on that.
Obviously, the suspect is Alonzo Sellers, Mr. S. No one else took a polygraph, and everything else about what they describe is him. One of the suspects, without provocation or excuse, attacked a woman in her vehicle. The state finds this information relevant and worthy of further investigation. Yeah, I would say it is. That's not all that we have here about 20 years
later. The location of the victim's car was directly behind the house of one of the suspect's family members. Ms. Lee's car was found parked in a grassy lot behind the 300 block of Edgewood Avenue in Baltimore City.
As the filing reveals, Alonzo Sellers had a family member who lived in that block. What's more, once you have the address of that family member and you know which house it was, it is the house that is literally the closest one to where her car was.
So let's stand there.
Oh.
Yeah, this is very dramatic right here.
Yeah. Wow, he did it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Did not respond.
Yeah, he's probably consulting with a lawyer and.
Yeah, I forgot about that part. Was that so? Again, if we're talking about Brady, are they alleging that the prosecution didn't tell the defense that the person's family member lived there?
This is more in the category of newly available evidence. For some reason, also the arrest 20 years later is newly available evidence.
Yeah.
Right.
So I will say, I don't want to say anything too bad about any of the attorneys involved in this, but Susan Simpson does seem to have podcaster brain. And I say that as somebody who has podcaster brain. This is true crime podcaster versus legal podcaster, I think, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just, there's nothing dispositive about any of this. And I understand about how maybe you could have tried to develop this a little bit more. You could have cross-examined Sellers more in the stand with some of this information, but it's, they don't even say which family member. It could be a third cousin. We have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a family member. Is that person involved?
Yeah.
Nothing more than that.
It's
nothing more than that.
So let's just keep it. I have to do a few more minutes, and we're not playing anymore because we're going to hit our fair use limit. But this is the core of it, so we have to hear it.
Okay, here we go.
It's very rare for a prosecutor such as yourself to reverse course on a verdict like this.
Our success is not measured by the number of convictions that we have. It's by ensuring justice for the family of that beautiful woman that was killed.
The case has just been systematically destroyed, piece by piece, brick by brick. Adnan's trial was not constitutionally sufficient. His conviction needs to be thrown out.
That's the part. Systematically destroyed brick by brick. I mean,
no, really hasn't.
Again, if you had somebody else's DNA, if you had a full confession that was credible from somebody else, yeah, sure. But we don't need to rehash again, but the state had a very solid case. I know that people think it's just circumstantial. A lot of murder cases are, but you have an accomplice who corroborates everything, and you have a cell phone on the scene, and you have an absolute motive. You have them in the car together. You have him lying about the car. I don't have to keep going. I think a lot of people know this already.
You mean, once again, another accomplice who's also black, who the police were like, no, we said we're doing an anti-Muslim one this time.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, he's a liar, and the police.
The only person who knew where the car was, also, for what that's worth.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, that's we said we weren't going to do it, but logically speaking, especially when you go, if anyone is like, someday I'll do more on this, I guess, maybe, because it just drives me nuts. We'll see how much this matters, and like how much, like, honestly, if this episode of the HBO thing, if it makes waves and people are like, oh my God, like that infuriates me. So maybe I'll be inspired to do more. But if you look at in the court fucking documents, the first days after it happened and the order in which police did stuff and who they talked to and when and what those people said, it is just not compatible with any of these conspiracy theories. It's just not. Like I forget if I'm blanking on the names, if it's Asia or something, one of the other witnesses.
Jen.
Jen. There's like, they tell the police that Adnan and or Jay had been talking about it or mentioned something. She gives, again, I'll polish up. I'm just telling people, if you want to know more about why I'm like, why I'm pretty certain, there's a million reasons, but like, just look at that. Look at the actual hard evidence of how that timeline went and who said what when. And there's no way the only way you can think he's innocent is by forgetting that stuff or not looking at it. But it exists. There's no other way to explain it.
You could also look at a whole lot of other very small things that have nothing to do with any of that, and that might get you through. That's what we're doing here. So, I just wanted to play that much. This is as much as we're going to play, I think, from the rest of this, because that's the motion, and that's the best possible presentation they can make of this motion, which has now been thoroughly withdrawn and discredited, and includes things that just don't make a lot of sense, to be honest. And I know I've said again, it hurts me to say this. Like, I love post-conviction work. I think it's really important. As you said, there's a lot that I would do to get somebody out, but I'm still bound by my ethical obligations here. And the truth, and the fact is that I completely agree with you. And this segues nicely into the next section here, that at the end of the day, what matters is taking responsibility for what you've done. And we're looking at somebody who has made a career out of not taking that responsibility, even in the face of all of this evidence at this point. So what actually happened with Adnan Syed, and why is he out now? That's the real question, because they just basically gloss over it. They talk about the Juvenile Restoration Act, but they don't acknowledge that what happened was there was a full second hearing. So in the motion to vacate hearing, as we said, they botched it with the witness note, the victim notification. It gets returned. Ivan Bates is now the state's attorney. He withdraws the motion to vacate and now goes forward with the agreement of the defense with the Juvenile Restoration Act case, in which he's going back in this law that just passed a few years ago, which I completely support. And Mass does this too now, for juvenile convictions of reexamining. I think something like 416 cases have been reexamined under this now, because, people, especially men, our brains aren't done by 25. There's a lot of science.
Well, that's kind of a myth, actually. But yes,
broadly speaking, as a lawyer,
the 25 thing is arbitrary. But I know. But yes, certainly you're not mature at 17 or whatever. 100%.
But your brain is in a different
your executive decision making is not great.
So it's not really great as a society to punish people the same way we would if you were 55. So the fact is that,
and the way we punish people at 55 is not great either, Matt.
No, not at all. No,
and again, we're all on the same page here. Yeah.
Yes,
right. And not like the prosecutey, tough on crime people.
Not at all.
I just hate that this poor girl was killed and their poor family has to deal with this guy being held up as a hero. That just drives me nuts.
No,
and Hae Min Lee's brother is in this for 15 seconds.
Can we play that at least? I know you said we're going to not play stuff, but when is that? Because I did want to at least play, because he we get to hear him make some of his statement that I found that I know you read when we did the podcast, and that I find pretty compelling.
Mr. Yang Lee, are you with us on the Zoom, sir?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
All right, good afternoon, sir. You're here today to make a statement, and the court is ready to hear from you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for giving me this time to speak. I've been living with this for like 20 plus years. I believe in the justice system, the court, the state, and I believe they did a fine job of prosecuting Mr. Syed. I always thought the state was on my side. And I am not against an investigation or anything of that sort that Ms. Dunn is doing. I am not against it at all. It's just the motion just to vacate judgment. It's really tough for me to just swallow. I ask you, Judge, just to make the right decision.
They wanted to make sure that I think as a token thing that they at least got a second of him talking, so
Glad
you
they
could
at
see.
least did that.
Yeah, and Simpson even kind of flags what's happening here. I think not knowing where it's going, but she says, it is. I do have to note that he barely had an opportunity to know this was happening. We know there wasn't a lot of notice on this, which ends up being the whole issue. But imagine after 21 years finding a message from the state's attorney saying, "Hey, in a couple of days, by the way, the guy who killed your brother, the guy who killed your sister, is just going to get out because we filed some stuff. Maybe you got to see it, maybe you didn't. Right? Yeah. Go ahead and tell us what you think." Yeah. And so I do want to point out that the entire purpose of this documentary is to show him being released. They had to try to find a way to somehow reverse engineer an entire show out of the great emotional footage they have of him getting out and going back to his family. And that's it's good.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm interested to see it.
Yeah.
But they had to try to explain what's going on around this without actually getting into it, which they didn't.
They had to try to make us all think he was exonerated.
Exactly.
Without actually saying that.
Right.
Or kind of saying it, like implying it as much as they could.
In the scene you're going to see where he's released, which we don't need to show, you should actually just go watch it if you're interested. We don't want to steal HBO's fair use here. But in that scene, he is being exonerated in that scene, he's not being exonerated. They're withdrawing, they're vacating, and he ends up not being convicted of murder. They released him right away. They didn't even put a GPS bracelet on. They were in such a hurry to get to the press conference. And there's also, all the way through this documentary, there's a real focus on press, on staging, on showing you different scenes, like having Becky Feldman come in and have like an awkward conversation as if it's for the first time, putting you in rooms that you really aren't really supposed to be in, where prosecutors are. What is not in this documentary is that in February of 2025, they had a hearing on the Juvenile Restoration Act, which is the actual sentencing reduction, in which this judge is resentencing him. He stands guilty because after what happened at the appeals court, it's returned. Ivan Bates withdraws the motion. And it was just as we talked about in SAO that he knew he couldn't support it. Not only could he not support it, but he found there were statements in there that were actually not true.
Lies.
One might say. And then he goes on to agree to the sentencing reduction. And the judge has a very long decision. We're going to link to all these things. I want to make sure I provide a very long set of links for this episode. You can read what the judge had to say about it. The judge went down all the factors. And one of the factors, of course, is acceptance of responsibility. And the judge said, this is a close one because in every other way, this seems to be an exemplary man. Like he's done well for himself in prison. Everybody seems to like him. He's done very well for himself once he's gotten out. He's shown himself to be a model citizen. He's not a danger to the community. I'm not going to put him back in prison, but it is a problem that he hasn't taken responsibility. And that's like the only factor he's really kind of waffling on, understandably, because it's just, I believe in restorative justice. I believe that, but that requires restoration to the community. It requires an admission that you did something wrong. And this is his opportunity. Like this was the one chance now to finally come out and say that this is what happened and I'm very sorry. But I don't know. I don't
know. It's reputation management though. I mean, like he's so deep in this that I don't think he has a choice. I mean, like from his angle, I think like a person with like a moral compass probably would say that they have a choice there to still own up. But I mean, he even says at the end of this documentary episode that, one of the things that they look for is for someone to take accountability. And he's like, but if you didn't do anything, like, why would you say that? Like he's holding that line to the very end.
When it's actually an innocent person, it is true that like often there are people who are innocent who confess to stuff for this reason, or who take plea deals and admit guilt. And that sucks. And again, to me, it all just comes down to, yeah, but he did it though. So sorry. Like, I don't, I have sympathy for when an innocent person is forced to maybe admit that they're guilty, but I mean, sorry, he did it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just that whole house of cards would fall, right? Yeah. If he admitted any sort of accountability or remorse or anything like that, not just for him, for Rabia, like it would fall apart for his position with Georgetown, and everybody would see him as a fraud for the people who don't already feel he's that way. So.
To his credit, though, he did not say he was going to spend the rest of his life trying to find the real killer. So
didn't he do that one press conferencey thing? Remember we covered that?
We do need to talk more about that another time. Yeah. That was something that no attorney ever should have let him do, and no attorney was there with him for a reason, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Some weird stuff there. Yeah, man, there's so much. But
there's so much. But I just want to point out though that this documentary, it's so deceptive in so many different ways, and I think that especially if you, I'm sure there's a lot of people that didn't watch the other 4 episodes and that only listened to Serial, and they're just kind of curious to see how this all capped out and want to watch the rest of it. And we'll take away from this that he got out because they found conclusive DNA evidence, and also some black guy probably did it. I think a lot of viewers are going to take that away, and that's really unfortunate. And it's really bad for a lot of different reasons, but especially
sellers, please sue.
Yeah, I know. I really think that they should look into it. He should talk to an attorney because
I think nonsense. I mean, that's really bad.
Yeah, I think they're being careful about Bilal, the other one, because they didn't, for this exact reason. I think they didn't focus on him very long, even though that would have been the far more credible, thing to look into. But they know that nothing came of that. But I will point out, 3 days ago, as we're recording this, in Baltimore, a black man was just exonerated, like actually exonerated, for a murder in which he was convicted of conspiracy. And it took him a very long time, and there's a lot of twists and turns. I don't have time to get into it. It might be it could be probably a very good podcast because it's actually about somebody who really got stitched up.
Innocent people, 100%.
But Tyrone Jones is, the kind of story that we're not talking about because we're talking about Adnan Syed, and he's continuing to take this limelight.
Because that goddamn MailChimp money.
That's right. Because there's a quirky podcast that, people got very attached to the characters in. And it spawned a whole podcasting true crime industry. Honestly, I think it's probably pretty clear by now. We are not a true crime podcast. We are a law podcast. I don't like true crime very much, and honestly, this
that's our other podcast, Gavel Gavel, which is
Gavel.
a true crime podcast.
Kind of,
goes on to talk shit on it. Yeah, no, not in the exploitative sense
law,
of like,
but
no, I really do hate the like. Let's find the worst disgusting shit and read it for some reason to you on a podcast. I don't get it, but whatever.
And let's show you 2% of what the jury saw, and when everybody at home can solve along with us on Reddit.
Yeah, and it's hard because on one hand, like you're the lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, and I do like I want to both say that this kind of thing, and it feels like the wider politics too. It feels like we're just infested with this idea that a couple of ragtag nobody, usually white dudes with a podcast or whatever, or on the internet or on Reddit, can find the little anomaly that proves the whole conspiracy. And it's rough because it's like, I guess I don't have any qualifications other than like, a decade or more in skepticism and trying to think clearly about these kind of things. And it's a bunch of people who are just willing to look at an anomaly and we've created a whole environment in which I think we've affected the epistemology of everybody. I think so many people in this country think that the way things work is, but that guy he once did a business with this guy and that, like all these tenuous connections that now we've trained it feels like that generation or more of people to just think that those like the A to B to Z, and it's just not how stuff works. It's like that Glenn Beck thing he used to do where Obama and then this guy and then this, like, we're just, our brains are broken by this stuff. And
true crime brain.
We need to practice better skepticism, and I don't know, there's no general way to say to do that other than just like, think better, everybody. I'm trying to provide examples, but
it's a concerning position to be in, right? Like where, it's that true crime brain, but then also susceptibility to misinformation. Yeah. And those two things coming together are pretty scary.
I can't talk about it that much, but there was a case that my partner was working on that she was primary attorney on. that I watched unfold in real time. I watched the true crime brain spiral out in a very high profile case in Massachusetts.
The amateur sleuthing.
And I could not believe the people they were willing to defame, the lives they were willing to ruin, the doxing that was going on, the fact that at one point they were blaming the only person in the world who actually cared about the victim. And like, I just can't even imagine. They're suggesting that person was the murderer, which is insane. It wasn't a murder to begin with, but it just wasn't.
Wait, what?
That's really bad.
It was absolutely a suicide.
I thought it was. I thought you were saying it was like
a
tax
bank
fraud.
robbery, and they're like, they said he was a murderer. There wasn't even a murder involved.
No, it was. It's a
I
horrible
see. So it's a suicide that was,
that people are saying it was.
And it's exactly. It's depressing. It's this dedication. They're just. It's more and more. It's Joe Rogan brain. I really think Joe Rogan is a huge part of this. Where it's this idea that like if you can put, loosely speaking, two sort of suspicious sounding things together, and or like five that are suspicious in opposite directions, by the way, which is the point I tried to make earlier. That never seems to register. Like, it's not. You can't just do anomaly hunting. You have to come up with a coherent story. And I'm talking generally. I know in criminal justice, you don't have to prove the person innocent. Obviously, they have to prove the person's guilty. I get that. But just in general, when we're talking about these theories, and especially if you're going to go so far as to just fucking accuse another person very clearly of the crime. It's one thing to sow reasonable doubt. It's one thing to do that. It's another to shoot the fucking, and again, CSI show with a pre-thing that really makes a person look guilty when you just have not at all established that whatsoever. Irresponsible.
And then display a nude photo of him.
Yeah, it's just, wow. I'm in disbelief about that.
Yeah. If you claim to care about wrongful conviction and about bad accusations and about police frame-ups, like you're just doing another frame-up in real time.
Yeah. A worse one, actually.
Yeah,
really.
sloppier.
There's less evidence. It's funny. That's the conspiracy theory brain has taken over such that, and you make a great point, Matt, the things they use to cast suspicion on other people are things they would never come close to accepting if it was casting suspicion on the person they're looking at.
Or shouldn't.
Nor should it.
I mean, there are, I guess to call out, not to start podcasting wars, but Bob Ruff, if you know about him.
Bob Ross, love him. No, I don't know who this is.
He's a
what?
Retired fire chief named Bob Ruff, who took on, he does like,
what a name.
Every season he does like a different crime that he and his listeners are going to solve together. Like it's just like, these aren't even real people. Just make up a story. Like just do like interactive fiction, right? But they took on Serial.
That's true. Write a mystery. I love a good mystery novel.
Interactive fiction. Do that. Absolutely. Yeah. And just like put a bunch of evidence out there and do a fake podcast with a fake story. That'd be a lot better and a lot better to everybody involved.
Easily do that, actually.
It's murder mystery dinners, but but virtually, so more people can join.
Okay, can we stage a fake serial somehow? I'll just commit a murder. Whatever. It's fine.
Oh my
Whatever.
gosh.
I'll do a murder. No, sorry, it wasn't me. I can't.
No,
obvious.
It's the chimpanzee. It's the male chimpanzee.
He was there the whole time. Nobody saw it.
That's funny.
But no, this is really, I don't know. This is a disgusting end to and I'm sure that won't be the end. There has to be more media coming from any number of people involved here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to badmouth Rabia Chaudhry. She's an immigration lawyer as just a general thing.
I forgot that.
I don't just talk bad about my colleagues. As I said, I appreciate her persistence, and I know that she really, has been dedicated to this in a way that I can appreciate.
She's very wrong on this, though. She's very wrong on this.
And the way that this is done, and the people she's heard along the way, to be honest, and just the I mean, because the subreddit for Serial is still one of the most popular subreddits on Reddit. It's still pretty active, but it has shifted in the last few years. I've been checking back every so often. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's now full of what they call guilters. It's full of people that have come to realize that the evidence is overwhelming, that what they were told in Serial was nowhere near the whole story.
Once some transcripts came out, I think you're saying that really changed a lot of people's minds. I always would say that the problem we have with this, and it applies, the reason I'm talking about it is it applies to a lot of things where the people who looked at it and are reasonable and are like, oh, yeah, I guess he probably did it. They're not in the subreddit for the most part. They're going to log off. There might be the me's who are like, why the fuck does everyone think that? But for the most part, like a lot of reasonable people are going to be like, well, I have better things to do with my day because this didn't turn out to be anything. And then what you'll be left with is the exceptional people, like statistically exceptional people who are convinced one way or the other, and or usually going to be biased toward thinking there's a conspiracy, because those are the people who are going to be motivated and energized to be in the subreddit and to be participating. And that has just created a false impression. It's created this false idea of what the world is, this bad ecosystem of information, of epistemology. And it's just But it is actually kind of nice. That's funny that happens with that subreddit. Same thing with the Sam Harris subreddit and the Joe Rogan subreddit. That it's mostly people that don't like those people now. Yeah. In the same way, the serial one seems to be maybe more people who think he's guilty than you might think. It's
many more.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you run something out like that for long enough, and people will start to see it. But yeah, no, it is just the puzzle box mentality of true crime, right? That serial gave you that comfortable sense that you're now getting the whole story when it's just giving you, one of many possible ways to tell the story. And people really feel like they've learned something or that they understand the whole thing when there was in fact a jury trial that went for weeks where a jury, unanimously convicted somebody.
And how much fucking press did Mosby get with what she did? Yeah. And then I didn't even know about this other video, this Bates video.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Right.
Like he had to, it looks like Bates had to try to like promote this to be like, hey, does anyone want to, like check out the fact that, I had to completely disavow this thing. What happened? Like nobody even cares, I guess.
No, and also because he seems like a decent prosecutor, he's not out there in front of cameras every day because that's not what you're supposed to do as a prosecutor. And Marilyn Mosby is from Boston, and I think that she has a lot of good qualities from what I know about her work. But she's clearly also chasing the cameras in this, and she was doing these interviews at the time.
Yeah,
that's
what was crazy to me. I can't believe we see this footage of her getting kicked out of office being like, all right, we need to just say he's innocent. It's like, what the hell?
It's smart. Weird. Because she had been indicted at that point and she needs a legacy. She needs something people are going to remember. And this could have worked really well. Yeah. Maybe it still will.
And maybe she believes it. I don't know. Maybe she believes it. Who knows? I think people want to believe certain things, and definitely I appreciate her mentality of wanting to make sure there aren't innocent people in prison. Totally appreciate that. And some of the other work she did was fantastic, but this was a big miss. This documentary was deceptive. I think sellers should sue. And any other final thoughts? This was fun for me. I really appreciate being able to get out some of my frustration on this because it just drives me nuts. But thanks, Matt. Thanks, Lydia. Any final thoughts?
This is really, I think this is going to stand as the most interesting series of things that have ever happened after a conviction. It is really fascinating on its own terms, even apart from all the celebrity that got this there. As somebody who loves post-conviction stuff and thinking about it, I've never seen or heard of anything like this before. And I think it's worth learning more if you don't know about what happened after Serial to
listen to the SIO you did. Everybody listen to, we'll link that because we didn't have time to get much into that, but that was really mind-blowing, Matt. Yeah. I remember you telling us about how, again, for the non-lawyers like me, it might have been hard to pick up on the subtlety of the thing that really got them was not providing notice to the brother, proper notice. And like the idea that was a reason they were able to kind of undo and win on appeal against this thing that otherwise it's just the state and the defendant like agreeing, which normally, I mean, that's going to just go. Like if both the prosecutor and the defendant are like, we agree on this thing, normally that's just like done, but victims' rights have to mean something. It was really interesting. So we don't have time. Check that out, everybody. We'll put it in the links, but when Matt did that breakdown, I can't remember if that would have been the second one or the first one.
It was the second one.
We did. Yeah, second one. Yeah. Just really interesting to be like, hey, if victims' rights matter at all, like what is it? It's got to be something, otherwise if there's no consequence to just not providing notice to victims, then you can just do whatever, it's really interesting to see how that went. And we didn't have time for it, but really interesting stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Lydia.
Thank you.
I'm going to go commit a murder. Brought to you by MailChimp. This has been Opening Arguments, produced by Thomas and Lydia Smith, with editing help from Peter Baird. The intro is by Thomas Smith. This outro is by Matt Cameron. Support the show at patreon.com/law. Contact us through Patreon or openarguments@gmail.com. Make sure to follow our Blue Sky @OpenArgs. But most of all, please share the show. Thanks for listening.